The other day I saw a really interesting take from a friend of mine on Twitter. His account is @subtlebodie, and he was talking about how everybody has their flavor of extortion, and that is the primary reason that it seems we are in the same chapter and can't seem to move on and turn the page and get to a new phase of life. It's because everybody has their own flavor of extortion, especially in these spaces where if you ever figure out the actual truth, there's nothing to really talk about anymore. It's like you lay it on the table, this is what it is, and now it's time to change it and do something about it, or admit that we're failures and losers who can't do anything about it. And so rather than come to that crossroad, or that fork in the road, if you will, people will just stay in the same place pushing or selling your preferred flavor of extortion to you. Doesn't matter if it's a religious flavor of extortion. It doesn't matter if it's medical. I mean, you see this in literally every walk of life. Doctors are resistant to abandon the healthcare system as it is because they like that flavor of extortion and making all that money off the insurance companies and having the luxurious life that they live. Patients also don't want to abandon that mainstream status quo flavor of extortion in the healthcare system because they like the flavor of extortion of a quote-unquote professional or a medical professional telling them what to do so that they can be healthy, rather than experimenting and figuring out their own health and doing it on their own terms. You see it in just about everything from fitness, right? A lot of people want you to just tell them what to do so they can just follow that path and get the final results. And sometimes certain things work better for other people. We're not all the same. But to try to wrap it or bring it back to what I was, this space and where we're at as a culture and society. If we refuse to abandon or give up the flavor of extortion that we prefer, we're not going to grow. We're not going to succeed in any of the great works that we delude ourselves that we're doing. And I'm not here to judge anyone or point fingers, because I'm guilty of it or I've been guilty of it in the past. And that's how I know about it, is because I've experienced oh yeah, during this part of my life I was into this flavor of extortion, and that was hard for me to give up, because then it means I have to be responsible for myself. And the sooner you can get there, the sooner you can share your journey with others, and the sooner they can, or you can, kind of be like a role model to a lot of people, because people are always looking to emulate someone. Very rarely do you have somebody just being themselves and living life on their own terms, and when they do, they're usually wildly successful. And that in itself is a flavor of extortion, because people are looking for a role model or a shepherd, somebody who carved the path for them, and all they have to do is follow that blueprint or follow that path, and they believe it'll take them to the same place. By the time you get there, it's not the same path. The forest has changed. It's like that saying, when a man crosses a river, he's not going to be the same man on the other side, and that river is not going to be the same river. So take some time, contemplate what your flavor of extortion is, what you like to be told. Oftentimes it's going to be connected to your sacred cows, and the person who will grow the most and transform the most and live a life that they intend to live is the person who can be honest with themselves and then be disciplined and have the willpower to do the necessary action to adjust course, trim their sails to the wind, if you will. I hope this finds you well. It's oh, you know, one other thing. You'll notice that the skies behind me are perfectly blue. And I don't know if it's a man-made thing or if it's just the sun hitting the solstice, but as soon as it went to the solstice, it went from being like 50 degrees where I am to today it's like 100 degrees. And it went from being cloudy. You can go back and look at my videos. It's like tons of clouds usually, and they just go away, and now it's like it feels like I'm in Los Angeles or Southern California or something. It's very bizarre, and I'm nowhere near that. I'm way far away. So something to think about, because if it's not man-made, then that is a really good indicator or a good sign to look for if you ever lose your reckoning, when you see the weather change that much. And where I live, it does seem to change on a dime, like exactly at the solstice, or the solstices and the equinoxes. It's fascinating, and I never really paid attention to that until I moved away from a temperate place, and the seasons swing here pretty big. But other than that, hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Check out my work in the links below. And actually, I was just talking to my friend Rose today, because somebody she knows is dealing with the cancel culture, and I had to deal with that. If you look at my first book, The Tale of Honora, and to a degree the second book, especially on Goodreads, but on Amazon, I've gone through the cancel culture too, so I know what it's like, where people leave a bunch of fake reviews and they vote them all up, so when you go on the landing page, that's all you see is the fake reviews. But if you like fantasy work, go ahead and support The Tale of Honora. They're pretty inexpensive, and they're a combination of an allegory for some of the things that I went through in life, but also wrapped up in some of my favorite adventures, because what I'd like to do ultimately is get enough support where I don't need to rely on financing from Hollywood or the bankers, and just make my own projects. And I'd really like to start getting back to telling stories and creating epic art, stuff that's gonna raise people's consciousness, you know, the way art is really supposed to work before it's being used by these perverts. But the types of people that canceled me are all the same freaks that you see rallying and throwing hissy fits now with their, you know, their sexual inversion, where they're upset, you know, because their butt-gina can't have an abortion anymore. But anyway, support my work. SpiritWhirled is my most successful series. That's going to learn you the most on what's going on in this world, and ancient history, and the priest class. And then I also have another book that I published this year called Get Mad or Get Realistic. And if you're one of those people that is, you know, you're trying to give up your flavors of extortions but you don't know where to start, I was in that boat for a long time. I just wasn't resourceful. That's all there is to it. I didn't really realize the tool of the internet, and so I wrote that book for people like me who just didn't know where to start but would have the discipline. And there's like a workout program. I teach you how to cook so you can have like high social proof. There's some good recipes in there. There's good hygiene things. A lot of good stuff, but a lot of good mental toughness in there on how I went from being more of a fatalist to accepting full responsibility for all of my life's decisions, and even the shit that happened that wasn't in my control, I accept my responses to that. And that's a hard thing to do, because when stuff goes sideways and it's not your fault, you still have to make a choice on how you respond. And by taking responsibility, you can transform everything. And when you don't get the results you want, it's because you didn't make the right choices. And the good news for that is everything is in your control. And so I know this is kind of long-winded, but I really hope it helps some of you, and I hope all of you have just an amazing rest of your summer. I'll be in touch for sure. Every time I get like an idea that comes to me, I like to do these videos so I don't have to write it down and then I can refer to it later. But let's get rid of the flavors of extortion that we're suffering from, and you know, really do something, because we don't have to go to war. We don't have to be entangled with all these foreign nations. All we have to do is hold all these corrupt freaks accountable, get rid of them, and all of our nations can go back to being peaceful and doing commerce and, you know, living life the way it's supposed to be lived, not at the mercy of these sick freaks that need to constantly create conflict in order to profit. But I'll wrap it up there, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers.